You see, one Indian gentleman, middle-aged Indian gentleman who appeared to be like a very well-to-do businessman. So he asked Srila Prabhupada in a rather challenging way, why are you building new temples when there are so many old temples needing renovation and repair? So Srila Prabhupada didn't answer the question directly. Srila Prabhupada asked that man, who is that lady sitting next to you? So that man said, well, she's my wife. Then Prabhupada asked him, why did you get married? So the man got completely flabbergasted, so he couldn't answer. Then Prabhupada provided the answer. He said, you got married because you wanted to have children. Putrarthe kriyate bharja. One gets married, one accepts a wife in order to get children. But why get children when there are so many children loitering in the streets? And then Prabhupada explained that just as you want to have your own child, similarly devotee wants to build his temple and install Krishna, and in this way offer the temple to Krishna. One morning, Prabhupada was having his oil massage. Harisauri Prabhu was giving him a massage on the roof of Prabhupada's quarters in Mayapur. I took some letters that I replied, went to Srila Prabhupada, and I used to read the letters out to, the replies out to Srila Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada used to sign them. Prabhupada signed the letters, and then he continued to take his massage. And although Prabhupada signed the letters and I should have left, but I just sat there and watching Srila Prabhupada having his massage. And then Prabhupada just started to speak on his own, addressing me. He told, many lifetimes you tried to enjoy, but you can see that you are still not satisfied. So just offer this life to Krishna and don't get involved with any woman. And then he explained the futility of man-woman relationship. He explained how sex desire is actually the chain that binds us in the material nature. And that's why the material nature is called Moithunagara, or a prison house of sex desire. And in this note, Srila Prabhupada spoke for about, I don't know for how long time, like half an hour, 45 minutes. And when I left, I felt that Prabhupada actually wanted me to become a sannyasi. That's just a feeling. So one morning, Srila Prabhupada wanted some orange juice. So there was no orange in Prabhupada's kitchen. So I went to the deity kitchen, devotee kitchen. There was no orange. So I had to go to the fruit shop, to buy some oranges. And those days, you remember, like there was nothing in front of our temple. So to get the oranges, I had to go quite a distance near the bus stop, bus station. And so when I came back with the oranges, and I started to make the orange juice, and the bell rang. Srila Prabhupada used to call us by ringing the bell. And so I ran to Srila Prabhupada's room. So Prabhupada asked me what happened to the orange juice. So I said, well, Srila Prabhupada, I'm just getting it, And then I went back and started to make the orange juice. And then, it took me some time to make it. So the bell rang again. But this time, the bell just kept on ringing continuously, Prabhupada just kept pressing the bell, And just by the sound of the bell, I could understand, how angry Srila Prabhupada must be. So I somehow, finished making the orange juice, put it in Prabhupada's silver cup, and took it on a silver plate and rushed into Prabhupada's room. But as I opened the door, I heard something that sounded like a thunderbolt. And Prabhupada was just telling me, like, take it away, I don't want it. I don't want it, I'd get out of here. But, I could not get out, like, so with the bowl in my, with that plate with the glass of orange juice in my hands, I just kept on moving towards Srila Prabhupada. And I came to Srila Prabhupada and I held it in front of him. For some time, Srila Prabhupada didn't pick up the glass. And finally, Prabhupada picked it up and he started to drink it. When he started to drink it, I realized that I forgot to bring the bowl of water that Prabhupada would need to wash his mouth after drinking the juice. So I ran to the kitchen, got the bowl of water, and then when Prabhupada was washing his mouth, then I remembered that I forgot to bring the napkin for Prabhupada to wipe his face. So this time I didn't run to the kitchen, I just went to Prabhupada's wardrobe and pulled out a towel and gave it to Srila Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada started to tell me, you are trying to serve me so nicely, but I always chastise you. You see, when one becomes old, one becomes short-tempered, so please don't mind. When Srila Prabhupada was chastising me, I didn't feel bad. But when Prabhupada started to speak like that, my heart just broke. And I tried to tell Prabhupada, please don't speak like that, Prabhupada. But my voice was choked. And then finally but Prabhupada continuously speaking, like in that note, like how when one becomes old, one becomes short-tempered. And then I managed to speak up and I told Prabhupada, please don't speak like that. I make mistakes, and if you don't correct me, then what will happen to me? That's one of the instances I remember when Srila Prabhupada chastised me very heavily. You see, Prabhupada just opened the Gurukul in Vrindavan and opened the new building actually. The new building was constructed. The Vrindavan Gurukul was going on. The new building was inaugurated. And Srila Prabhupada was very happy with the new building, and he used to tell people that about the Gurukul building when the people came for his darshan. So one very important businessman came to see Srila Prabhupada from Delhi. He is Jai Dayal Dalmia, one of the biggest industrialists in India. So he came with his 2 daughters-in-law and their children. And he was a very old man at that time, and very nice and pious man actually. So Srila Prabhupada was telling him about the Gurukul education system. And then he asked him to send his grandchildren to the Gurukul. And he explained to him that the modern education system is simply meant for creating Sudras, how to get a good job. That's the purpose of education. But your children, your grandchildren, do not need to get a job, but they should actually become the leader of the society. And that's why he should actually send his grandchildren to the Gurukul. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that, see, the Gandhis Indira Gandhi's sons, Nehru's grandchildren, coming from such a aristocratic family, such a noble family. But look at them, they have become rascals and rogues. And he said that, do you want your grandchildren to become like that? No. Train them up to become the leaders of the society, a real leader of the society. And in this way, Srila Prabhupada actually explained. Now later on, I got to know his son, the father of one of the grandchild, and he told me that at that time his father was so convinced that he was planning to send his son to the Gurukul. And I know the son, his name is Abhishek Dalmia. Although he didn't go to Gurukul, but he has, although he didn't go to the Gurukul, but he keeps a sikha, I mean, the family is very, very pious, and it's unfortunate that he didn't send his son to the Gurukul, but I mean, you can see the potency of Srila Prabhupada's preaching. He is one of the richest men in India, and he was considering to send his grandson to the Gurukul. This was, just a few days before Prabhupada left the planet. Two very prominent Indian gentlemen came to see Srila Prabhupada. One was the governor of Madras, Sriman Narayan, and his brother-in-law, Ramkrishna Bajaj, a very big industrialist. So two of them came to Prabhupada's room, and some of us were there in Prabhupada's room. And at one point they just told that they wanted to discuss something in private with Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada asked us to leave the room. So, we left the room, although we didn't want to. But while leaving the room, I pressed the button, recording button of the tape recorder. And they asked Prabhupada who would actually have the legacy after Prabhupada left the planet. And Prabhupada mentioned to them that he is giving the legacy to all his disciples, and whoever follows will have the legacy. That was actually printed in the Back to Godhead that came after Prabhupada's disappearance, Prabhupada's final instructions, and this one was there. And then they figured out that the tape recorder was on, and they asked Prabhupada if they could switch off the tape recorder. So that was also there, in the tape recorder. I mean, it was taped. And I don't think after that they had any serious discussions. Actually, what they wanted to know, who would become Prabhupada's successor. But Prabhupada made it very clear that he is giving the legacy to all his disciples, all his followers. So whoever follows has the legacy, and he didn't want to appoint any successor as such. You see, it was in Vrindavan one morning, Srila Prabhupada asked me to see if there is spinach, the two varieties of spinach, the green variety and the red variety. He asked me to see if we have these two varieties of spinach, if there was pumpkin, radish, eggplant, and bitter melon. So I went to the kitchen, and in Prabhupada's kitchen there was no spinach. So I went to the deity kitchen and devotee kitchen, and I was told that that was the month of spinach fast. So I went and told Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, this is Chaturmas, and this is the month of spinach fast. So Prabhupada asked me, is everyone observing Chaturmash? so, so I got the message. So I myself went to the market to buy everything. And I went to the market and I thought I got everything. Then I came back and I told Prabhupada, I got everything. So Prabhupada asked me, what you got? So I said, Prabhupada, I got these 2 varieties of spinach, I got eggplant, I got pumpkin, I got radish. And then I remembered that I forgot to get bitter melon. But it was so stupid of me, like I told Prabhupada, I lied to Prabhupada, and I said the bitter melon. So I thought, just arrange to get the bitter melon, and so Prabhupada said, bring them. Yeah. So I ran out, so Prabhupada asked me to bring it. So I ran out, and there was an employee in the kitchen, in the guest house. His name was Kishan. So I gave some money to Kishan, and I said, Kishan, take the cycle, go to the market, and get some bitter melon. And so I was, I thought it'll take 10-15 minutes, And in the meantime, I went to the kitchen. I started to prepare other preps, and I was kind of, running back to the gate and kitchen and back, And then finally Kishan came back, and he said that there is no bitter melon in the market. And so I already went to the kitchen, the devotee kitchen. There was no bitter melon. And at that time, I felt as if, the whole world is crumbled down on me, And I was literally praying to Krishna, like, please save me from, now I have to go and tell Prabhupada that I lied to him, that I forgot to bring bitter melon. And, like I was kind of dazed and walking back. I was kind of preparing myself. Now I have to go and tell Prabhupada. I didn't tell him at that time because I thought that Prabhupada would get annoyed with me and start chastising. And now, who knows, what kind of chastisement I'll get, And so usually what I used to do is take the passage next to the temple, the Parikrama Marg, and walk up to the up to Prabhupada's kitchen. But I don't know, I was so dazed. I walked up to the Gurukul building, and then I started to, go that way through the Gurukul building. And there, I saw on the balcony, on that passage, the Gurukul, there is one green bitter melon. I just pounced on that and started to thank Krishna in every possible way, and ran, picked up the vegetables and went to Prabhupada's room. And Prabhupada was already taking his massage. So before taking his bath, he used to take his massage. So I went to his room and I told Prabhupada I brought the vegetables. So Prabhupada told me how to cut the vegetables. And then finally I said, Prabhupada, and the bitter melon? And so Prabhupada looked at me and said, bitter melon. And just the way Srila Prabhupada said bitter melon, I was completely convinced beyond any doubt that Prabhupada knew what actually happened. Prabhupada taught me to cook one preparation called bati chachari. It is made with pottle and potatoes. And you put a lot of ghee and a lot of chili, a lot of red chili. And so Prabhupada asked me to cook that preparation. But Prabhupada's stomach was not very good at that time. So while preparing that, I felt that I should not put so much red chili. So I cooked it, with, no, he had stomach problem. I mean, his stomach was not so good. So he didn't want any red chili. And he didn't want any red chili in there. I mean, I didn't put any red chili, thinking that, like his stomach was not good. And when I served, Prabhupada just took a bite and he became very angry. He said that I personally taught you how to cook it and you forgot. And he was very, very heavy, And not only at that time, for next 2 days, whenever I went near him, he just blasted me. That and his point was, he personally taught me how to cook that, and I forgot. And not only he chastised me, whoever went to him, he also told him how useless I was. Then on the third day, when Prabhupada's anger, Prabhupada's anger subsided to some extent, And Prabhupada kind of, rather in a mild way this time, he asked me, how could you forget when I personally taught you? And then I told Prabhupada, I didn't actually forget. I deliberately didn't put it because I thought your stomach was not good. And red chili will not be good for your condition. Then Prabhupada told me, then why didn't you tell me all this while? And then he told me that ghee is hot and chili is hot. But when there is a lot of ghee and lot of chili, they counteract each other's effect. But what touched my heart the most, if I can say so, was Prabhupada's concern for everyone. In one hand, Prabhupada was so strict, but at the same time, Prabhupada was so compassionate and so concerned. Like I remember Prabhupada for months, for 2 months at least, he did not eat anything. Only once in a while he would take some juice, fruit juice, and a little diluted milk. But he would inquire how the devotees were eating, how the devotee prasad was. So one day Prabhupada asked me to go and check out how the devotee prasad was. And I came back and told that the prasad was not so nice. When Prabhupada called the temple president and he chastised him, he asked why the prasadam was not nice. See, he himself couldn't eat anything for 2 months, but he was so concerned about how the devotees were eating. So I was with Srila Prabhupada, and we were living in Srila Prabhupada's quarters on the 6th floor of the tower. And one of my senior god brothers one day was little annoyed with me, and he started to chastise me very heavily. And those days I used to be quite sensitive, I was feeling really bad that he chastised me. Then I went to Srila Prabhupada on some, I had to do something. So when I went to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada just on his own, he just started to tell me, you see, the sign of one's advancement, the sign of one's spiritual advancement is not in the big position one has. The real sign of advancement is how humble and how tolerant one has become. And just that instruction, like took away all the, the heaviness from the heart. And I just remembered. And that instruction I often remember, that the sign of our advancement is not in our position, but in how humble and how tolerant we have become. When Prabhupada first went to Mayapur with his American disciples, they bought a piece of land in Mayapur, and so Prabhupada actually drove straight to Mayapur, our place. It was just a small hut that they built for Srila Prabhupada, without stopping at Gauriya Math, Chaitanya Math, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Samadhi. So some of his god brothers commented that he didn't even stop at his spiritual master's Samadhi. So when Prabhupada heard about that, when Prabhupada was told that they were speaking like that, then Prabhupada commented, do they think that I am ever separated from my spiritual master even for a moment? My spiritual master is always with me. And that is how a disciple should always be conscious of his spiritual master. Like spiritual master is none other than the super soul. The spiritual master is the super soul, or actually even more than the super soul. The yogis, when they attain perfection, they see the super soul in the heart. A devotee, when he attains perfection, he sees his spiritual master in the heart. So pure devotion means to see his spiritual master in his heart all the time. So more we become Krishna conscious, more we make spiritual advancement, the more we will see Srila Prabhupada in our hearts. And we are seeing, like, actually that's the benefit of being in ISKCON. Like everywhere we see Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's temples, Prabhupada's deities, Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's devotees, everything is Srila Prabhupada. And that's what is actually not only protecting us from the onslaughts of Maya, but automatically pushing us towards our ultimate destination, Krishna's lotus feet. Once I expressed my desire to learn Sanskrit to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada asked me, why? What's the use? Yeah, that's what he said. What's the use? So I started to tell Prabhupada, like giving him different reasons, and Prabhupada started to, smash all those reasons. And then finally he made the point that our business is not to become a Sanskrit scholar. There are so many Sanskrit scholars, but what are they doing? Our main business is to preach Krishna consciousness all over the world. And with whatever ability, with whatever qualifications we have, we should just try to preach Krishna consciousness. And then I started to tell him what actually happened. That I told him about Bhima's Mahaprasthan. Prabhupada heard about that, and right after that Prabhupada was planning to go for a parikrama of Govardhan, and I feel Prabhupada is actually planning to go on a Mahaprasthan himself, the final departure. And then Babaji Maharaj said, then we can't let him go. Then I said, Babaji Maharaj, the only person who can convince Prabhupada not to go is you. So Babaji Maharaj was so humble, he said, me? How can I tell him? So I said, you are the only person who can actually convince him. So then Babaji Maharaj, he just got up, washed his hands and mouth, and walked straight up to Srila Prabhupada and said, I heard everything, and I feel that you should not go to parikrama. Then Prabhupada said, Babaji Maharaj, if you say so, then I will not go. And at that time, we kind of took it for granted that Srila Prabhupada came to Vrindavan to leave his body, And so around that time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj one day, he told me that we don't really know what to do if Prabhupada leaves his body. If Prabhupada left his body, we didn't know what to do. So he asked me to find out from Krishna's Babaji Maharaj. And so, I went one afternoon, late afternoon, I went to Madhav Maharaj's mutt, where Krishna's Babaji Maharaj was staying. So I went, but Babaji Maharaj was not there. So waiting for him for a while, I just came back. So when I came back, Upendra Prabhu, who was Prabhupada's servant at that time, told me that Prabhupada was looking for me. So I ran into Prabhupada's room and asked him whether he wanted me to do anything. So Prabhupada asked, where did you go? Where were you? So I said, Prabhupada, I went to Madhav Maharaj's mutt. So Prabhupada asked, why did you go there? I mean, his voice was ringing with anger, he said, why did you go there? And I couldn't answer, why I went there, it was, how could I say why I went there? And I was just silent, and then Prabhupada's voice kept on, rising, and he was screaming, why did you go there? So finally I said, Prabhupada, I went to see Krishna's Babaji Maharaj. And then Prabhupada's voice became even louder with anger. And he asked, why did you go there? So I finally said, Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted me to go there. And then Prabhupada said, oh, I see. He became quiet. From that, I learned a lesson that Prabhupada didn't want us to go out to anybody. Although he had such a good relationship with Babaji Maharaj, still he didn't want us to go to him. And that actually, it makes it, later on I got to know, how Prabhupada said that if they say one thing different from me, then everything will be spoiled. And that's why Prabhupada didn't want us to go anywhere. He was like a caring father, who was just protecting us from any danger. Je anilo